Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
The truth shall set you free.
You can't handle the truth.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
That's not how the Force works. Oh, really? You're cold?
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
I'd buy that for $1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Hasta la vista, baby.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Control Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Canon, and thank you for joining us for our latest episode where we're going to be talking about the DCU Chapter 1. So joining me for today's episode, we've got a full house today. We have Neil, Sasha, Alex, Lee, and Sal. How you doing, guys?
Doing well.
I'm good.
Hello.
Right, so basically the DCEU, as it was kind of formerly known, that started off with the Man of Steel back in, was it 2012 or something?
13, wasn't it?
Was it 13? Yeah. So it's going on alongside. So it started off with Man of Steel. They gave us Man of Steel, gave us Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and we obviously had two versions of the Justice League ultimately. So we had the one that came out of cinemas, and we had Zack Snyder's one. We had Batman versus Superman, and basically a Shazam, and it kind of basically got into a bit of a mess. And the films weren't doing well, considering how well known these characters are. They should be doing huge box office. So if you take a film like Justice League, I think it did 500 million worldwide, if that. And if you compare that to what Marvel's movies are doing, and when they're bringing all their main characters together for Avengers, which is hitting billion, 2 billion, it's severely underperformed. Some of it people put down to the artistic direction. Some put it down to the tone of the characters. Some put it down to that kind of hash of a movie, which was Justice League, where it started with one director, finished with another. But yeah, there's I think multiple reasons why it didn't work, and a lot of it is probably the higher ups. There was no real outline, and they kept changing their position on what they wanted and what they wanted from their franchise because they kept trying to react to Marvel as opposed to having a vision and sticking with it. So, come the 1st of November. DC announced that they were having two people step into the CEO of DC Studios Productions. One was Peter Safran, and the second, who seems to be much more the lead, is James Gunn. So James Gunn, if you know the name, you'll be familiar with him as the writer-director of Guardians of the Galaxy, and he also did the semi-reboot continuation sequel of the Suicide Squad, which was called Suicide Squad, I think, which I personally love, and I love James Gunn's work. So he's been given that position now, Peter Safran, and basically they've just done an announcement this week of what they see as the future for the DC basically franchise. And what James has said, he did the announcement video, and he said he believes it's his job and Peter Safran's job to connect these characters and stories in film, TV, gaming, and animation. So they want characters that are consistent, played by the same actors across different platforms. Characters and their real-life actors will then move between live action and animation, so they'll voice the characters in animation as they do in the movies, but it will be a continued version of these characters and a continued connected storyline. So everything is going to connect. So obviously at the moment you kind of had DC film, but then DC animation, and they kind of did comic book adaptions, and they were quite different separate stories. It is all going to connect to a point. Then obviously we've got properties which we have franchises like the Batman and Joker, Teen Titans, and Superman and Lois, and they're going to continue, but in a separate part of continuity, and they're going to be called DC Elseworlds. So you're going to have one connected timeline, and then you're going to have other movies which sit in elsewhere, or kind of the what if and alternate realities, basically alternate versions of these characters. So before we talk about the films that are coming out and the stuff that's been announced for like the next few years in terms of their chapter 1, what are your guys' thoughts about having everything connected in one part, so your games, videos, animation and stuff, and then your Elseworlds? How do you feel about that separation? Neil, you're probably comic book guru when it comes to DCs. What are your thoughts?
I think on paper, in principle, it is a good idea. But I think if you really pay like close attention to everything that's going on with Marvel in the MCU, I will quickly find out that it is not as easy as it appears or as it sounds, because doing something through TV and through film, great. But even amongst people, even amongst like diehard MCU fans, that is at present moment proving to be somewhat difficult. Maybe that's just because Marvel has reached a point where their output is
so
quite intensive, right? But I think the point of adding games, I think that's where I see problems forming, because I mean, if you're not a gamer in any, you could love comic books and love comic book films, love comic book TV shows, but being a gamer is quite a different medium, because you are actively being part of this. You're interactive to what happens in the story. So I think maybe the games part is probably, I'm not going to call it a misstep because nothing has come out yet. But I would say that's where I see the ground isn't as steady.
Okay.
I share that with Neil. I share that same regarding video games. The same with Neil, to be quite honest. When you think how quickly they churn out these films, you know what I mean? It takes longer to churn out a video game. And I work in the games industry to be able to tell you that for fact. If you're building a game from the ground up, obviously it takes 4 years. All right. Some of the best AAA titles in the business takes 4 years to make. All right. You know, when they do sequels, they'll do it in half the time, in 2 years. Yeah, I mean, there'll be like a 2 year gap, unless they have a workflow, an internal workflow, like those cats that make Call of Duty, where they have like about 3 separate studios working on the same IP, where they can afford to churn it out year after year after year. Or you're EA and you just copy paste the same code and change the stats of the players, and that'll take a year. You know what I mean? That's how it works. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of gamers know exactly that's how you know the sausage is cooked. But you know, in terms of like, you know, having like a big universe and stuff, I mean, like Star Wars did it, but then they weren't churning out games every 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And everyone was on the same page with that. And then at the same time, they didn't use the same actors. You know what I mean? Like, to do everything. Some occasions they do, and it's like, oh my God, that's nice. But think how long it was since they made one game and had an actor act and whatnot. You know? So yeah, I've got concern with the game thing. And also, the cool thing about Marvel is that they have a relationship with their actors to let them go off and do other stuff as well, as well as playing the MCU kind of thing, which is half of the attraction, really. I mean, like, do you really think Harrison Ford is going to be General Ross if he has to be there for months on end? No. You know what I mean? Guys doing it for, you know, fat paid day and probably only there for about 48 hours and job's done. You know what I mean? I could be wrong on that, but you know, you hear how many man hours these guys work sometimes. You know, it's crazy the way the workflow Marvel have on their movies. So to add games and animation to the mix, animation you could probably get away with it, maybe. But
I think since the pandemic, a lot more animation is actually recorded remotely for voice actors.
That's right. That's right.
You know, where before they always had to be in a studio there, and then they have the equipment at home now, and they do it at home. I've seen it like on The Simpsons and all sorts.
Yeah.
So it depends, because again, like, you know, these films could, you know, say something happens and they change something. We've seen it with Marvel where something happens, a pandemic or something, and then they can't get as many shoot days, and then they change aspects of the story, etc., etc. That shit happens in video games as well. And I'd argue that you probably wouldn't have as big a quality gaming experience if you're cutting chunks out to appease. Do you know what I mean? All of this stuff is better when it's pre-planned, and that's my only concern, video games. But I digress, because we're going off topics. We're here to talk about the movies, so I could be, but who knows? I could be proved wrong. You know what I mean? So,
any other thoughts on Elseworlds?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the one thing that I'm actually glad they brought up, because I loved the Batman, I love Joker, and I don't want that to just get swept under the rug and sort of forgotten about. So the fact that it also opens up the fact that they can, especially if they're going to be like very defined in terms of their different brands, then, as you say, Satch, even if they want to release a game or an animated movie that's an Elseworlds story, well, they just crank it out, as long as it's then branded that way, so people know, okay, cool, this is not connected to everything else. Knock out a great story with great characters, happy days. And then, when the stuff that's connected comes out, then so be it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point when it comes to sort of animation in games. I think they will set, stuff that is released, they will set under Elseworlds. Not all animation is going to be tied into the greater storyline. Marvel have kind of done it with the What If animated series. And one of the announcements for the slate is a DC animated series. But I think it's more a case of the stories won't necessarily link into the wider DCEU. I think it's just going to be more the characters are going to be the same, voiced by the same actors. So the games and animation may tell their own stories, but I think when it comes to those key tentpole characters, it's more just the continuity of, I know that voice, I know that demeanor, I know that presence, and that kind of sits within that world. So I don't see a huge amount of it coming with the game stuff. I think it might be just sort of like, I think they'll have one tentpole game that they work on where it's going to have all the voices of your tentpole characters, and then the rest will just kind of filter through. Because, look, think how many actual DC games you get, over the years. There's not going to be that many. So
I imagine they would do the copy-paste thing. Bring a political one platform, and then, change the characters, just change the avatars, and simply the same platform running all the games. And, they have to be standalone, because you cannot connect games into the movies, because as far as we all know, most people, let's say 80% of the people watching a film would never have even heard of the film, the video game or the animation. It will be idiots like us.
The best. For me, the best thing they could do is release sort of like a GTA style game, open roaming game, where you can play one of your lead tentpole characters and just keep downloading content.
Exactly.
You can just keep that world alive and keep it, with the voice actors, and just keep adding to it as it goes on, as opposed to individual stories, sort of like an Arkham series where you had a story per game. Just make it open world and just download the content. But anyway, Lee, what are your thoughts on that? Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just to follow up on that again, because I'm not a gamer. So again, whatever games come out, I won't be playing. Simply that. So if they're tied into the greater story, as long as they're not like, that's the downside to Marvel. To be fair, in my mind, is that literally I feel as if I have to watch everything to know what's going on. Whereas if you're going to if you're going to throw that into a game where suddenly it's like, well, if you haven't played this game, you now can't follow the rest of the movies or shows or whatever. Well, then I'll be out, and it'll be Elseworlds for me only. Because
that was a bit like the Matrix, wasn't it? The Matrix game had a storyline that was kind of running in the background.
As long as there are things that can games. I think as long as there are things they can add to it, as opposed to the need to watch it.
If it's a story that like takes place within the world, and there's references to characters that we've seen in the movies or shows, fair enough. But if it's like so integral that something happens in the game, and oh my god, this is going to be what pushes the main story forward in all other mediums, then I think that's going to be a
it's
problem.
kind of like the Mandalorian effect. I mean, like, you have Star Wars Rebels, which is a great TV series, it's a cartoon, and people that are fans of that show, they watch the Mandalorian and they're like, oh my god, that's from this and that. You don't necessarily have to watch Rebels to watch Mandalorian, because you can pick up Mandalorian from the pilot episode, because it more or less does a good job of being its own thing. You don't even have to see any of the Star Wars movies to do that. Same with Rebels, as like, you don't even have to watch Star Wars to watch Rebels. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of those kind of shows. Even Andor as well. You wouldn't have had to have seen any of the Star Wars stuff. So I'm assuming they'd be the same thing. But like you guys said, if it was like something essential, where it's a must need, that would be a bit silly, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah.
So as we mentioned, we're still going to get a sequel to Matt Reeves' The Batman, which I think is scheduled for like another 2 years' time.
2020, October 2025, I think.
Yeah. Joker, we're getting a sequel to that. Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, who's playing Harley Quinn. So, which I've heard is going to maybe be a bit like a musical, because the first movie was from Joker's point of view. Apparently, the second one's going to be kind of from Harley Quinn's point of view, so it's going to have like musical numbers and stuff in it, because it's like her imagination in the world through her eyes. That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's going to be the case, but and one thing I'm really happy there's getting another season, maybe two, is Superman and Lois. So we'll actually still have two versions of Superman. So we'll have our Elseworlds Superman there, because I really enjoy that series. Watched the first two seasons, think it's fantastic. The best stuff from the CW network I've seen. Really, really well executed for that character. And again, it's different because, spoilers, he's married and has kids, and it's a different dynamic and different challenges that you've never seen Superman on screen have to deal with before. And, I really enjoy that. So let's talk about the projects which are still here, which are still being released. Obviously, we did have Batgirl cancelled. So Batgirl was going to be a HBO streaming movie. It was going to introduce Batgirl. It was going to bring in Michael Keaton returning as Batman. And it was Brendan Fraser, I think it was Firefly in it.
Yeah.
Now, they all had a good time making it, but apparently anyone who saw it did not like it. And I think as Peter Safran said, it could not be released. Apparently it was that bad. So they felt that was going to damage the franchise significantly. Now, who knows, because we haven't seen it. I've seen images and clips, and behind the scenes stuff is always kind of hard to tell from the finished articles, but the people who are part of that are really passionate about it. But that is something we'll never see the light of day. We're not going to get a Batgirl director's cut. That's not happening. So what we have left is Shazam. So Fury of the Gods, that is next. I think that's in March this year, so it's not far away. So sequel to the first Shazam movie. Shazam kind of connected to the DCU in terms of references, and obviously you had the faceless cameo of Superman at the end of it. I don't know how much this is supposed to connect, but from James Gunn's announcement, he says it leads straight into the Flash. Now, he kept saying leads into a lot, but I think he means it just that is coming after. I don't necessarily think there's connected references within the movies to those, unless they've shot stuff to make that happen. I don't know. But then we've got the Flash. Now, obviously, there's been all this stuff about Ezra Miller in terms of his outside activities and what he's been up to. Again, all allegations, hasn't been convicted. He's apologized. He says he's going to therapy and he's doing his thing. This is a big budget movie for them to pull as compared to sort of like Batgirl. And they felt that they needed to see this through. Now, apparently, there's been multiple reshoots. Now, there was rumors that Henry Cavill did reshoots because he did the stuff with Black Adam. Apparently, if that was the case, they're going to be removed. Now, Sasha and I know the story, or what we've heard was the original story for The Flash, and it kind of would have wrecked the DCU from my point of view. I won't go into those spoilers. But
you know what? I've got to say this because I've been engaging with Snyder fans online and stuff, but you got to understand, I'm coming from a place of privilege, being that I know what happens, okay? And there's a lot of stuff I can, I could trash the fucking film, and I could trash the universe and stuff, but I'm coming from a place with more knowledge than the average Joe. But all I'm going to say is, whatever you think the worst fear is to happen to, certain characters like Batman and Superman, embrace those fears, man, because seriously, I don't want no DCU moving forward after that movie. And if Batgirl was an arm extension of that, they did the right thing by pulling the plug.
Well,
I think
what I heard is that from the words when he was announcing it, from his own words, and because he's the CEO, so I'm quite sure somebody sat down and wrote his speech. And when he introduced all those characters, It sounds very much like that it's supposed to end it all. So
Yes.
therefore
He said it's going to reset. Yeah.
Reset.
Yeah.
But he emphasized reset. I think what he means is end it all so they can get rid of it and restart again, because they can't have all these characters. They've canceled shows that are doing very well. And I think the reason behind this is because they're trying to get people, because they want to do the animation, because they want to move movies and TV shows, they're going to get people who are not doing anything else. So they're focused 100% on them.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe... Sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
no, go.
don't necessarily believe that that's fully the case. I think it's a thing of... Because, truth be told, not everything is being cancelled. Not everything is being reset. There are things that are staying exactly as they are right now. You know, Peacemaker is still getting a season 2. That's not going to be Elseworlds. That's going to be Peacemaker as part of the DCU. Waller, it's still going to be played by Viola Davis. That's not going to change. So
nobody hated Viola Davis.
I find it difficult to be like, oh, they'll make a show about her using her, and then they'll make it Elseworlds. I think I think a lot of it is boiling down to money. A lot of it is probably boiling down to money. It's boiling down to Warner Brothers. I mean, Warner Brothers are trimming the fat, so to speak. And I think a lot of that trimming the fat is they probably looked at it and they were like, okay, here is everything we have that is DC related. Here's what we need you to keep because it's doing well. What do you want to keep? Oh, I want to keep this, this, and this. All right, cool. Everything else, barring this film and this film, must, like, these two must stay. Everything else can go. Mm-hmm. And then they just wiped it that way. And all of these kind of the whole reshoots and everything of the Flash and I think the reshoots mean as little now before the film comes out as the reshoots that came that resulted in the ending of Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They will lead to nowhere great. They will lead to nowhere of substance. Maybe it's a little different with the Flash because obviously most things reset past that point. But I do just generally think that it was just a money decision.
Yeah,
because like you say, it's got to be money because, like you say, the thing is as well. If they, I mean, that's why I feel bad for like James Gunn having to like announce stuff now. I mean, all DC fans are like clamoring him. I mean, I'm not on Twitter, but from what I hear, you know, everyone's all over Twitter. Oh, we know when you're announcing this, that, the other, blah blah blah. And it's like, so he's in this difficult position where obviously he wants to announce what's coming, but if you're gonna wipe everything clean or most of it clean, then who's going to bother going to see the Flash? Who's going to go see Aquaman 2?
Exactly that.
But this is
so many people have said
mid area.
So many people have said this online. So like, oh, you might be keeping the Flash. Oh, you're going to be keeping Aquaman, but you're getting rid of Cavill, Wonder Woman. That isn't the case. You know, he as CEO of DC Studios cannot come out and say Ezra Miller's done as the Flash. He's doing this movie, then we're not having him back. Because then no one's going to bother seeing this movie. Exactly. He can't do it for Aquaman. If they're keeping Jason Momoa or not, he can't say, no, we're not continuing with him because, you know, again, no one's going to go and see Aquaman. You have to realize that there is money to be had still with these films. The Aquaman thing still did $1 billion, I think the first one. You know, they feel that maybe that can do it again. So they're not going to waste their potential.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. The whole thing about them maybe keeping some people or not, it's just face.
Yeah.
I think it's just face to tide us over for this wave of all the films coming to fold. Flash, Aquaman. That minute these films are done, we ain't seen those actors again in those roles.
Well, I mean, think about this. What he said about Ezra Miller. He literally said, once this film comes and goes through, we will have a chat with them about the future.
Yeah, do you know what that chat is based on?
The future is
whether or not
the doorman.
Whether or not the Flash makes 200 million in its opening weekend, right?
Exactly.
The way I'm like, I have not seen the Flash. I know bits and pieces about the movie, but James Gunn came out and said, and that's the thing, he hasn't come out and said it. It's been quoted. It's been quoted that he said The Flash is one of the best superhero movies of all time. Right?
Oh no, he did say it he did say it in the presentation. He said it, but he okay.
Because I watched the presentation. Maybe I watched the edited version.
Great movie.
Yeah, he said it's a great movie when he spoke.
Great movie. He didn't say
great movie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
It was a written quote from him. Is that it's one of the greatest, right? It's one of the best superhero movies of all time. And I'm like, that's a real strong statement to make when you're pulling out a movie. When you're pulling out a movie that is essentially the full stop on everything that came before you, as well as the capital letter of everything that's going to come after it.
Well, that's true. But see, it was an off-the-cuff statement, and also remember,
it wasn't off the cuff. It wasn't off the cuff because that video was pre-recorded. If you watch that video back, that was edited to shit. There was so many cuts in that video where they've taken things out that they didn't either want to say. What I'm trying to say,
stuff like that. What I'm trying to say is that he didn't really emphasize great. He said it's one of the greatest films on the air, and he keeps on going. It doesn't stop. It doesn't pause on the thing. What I mean to say is that
again, because he's the CEO
now,
and that's the thing. Is, as they said, but even as a CEO,
everybody.
I hate to obviously have to do the thing of comparing Marvel to DC again, but
don't apologize.
But you look at Kevin Feige, right? And you look at every time Kevin Feige has spoken about a Marvel movie pre it coming out, he even when the man had Endgame, right? He was not like, it's going to be arguably one of the best superhero movies you're ever going to see. He was just like, calm, humble. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, but the thing is,
and he had, and remember, this is a man saying this with 10 years of basically, like, if he was a sports team, he's won the title 10 times.
But that's the thing. He's been in head for 10 years. James Gunn's been ahead for what, 3 months?
That's what I was going to say. That's the worrying thing for me. Is that DC haven't had a run of decent films, and now all of a sudden they're doing films, TV shows, video games, animations. It's like, well, you couldn't get one thing right, and now all of a sudden you're doing about 6 different things.
They never had somebody in charge that oversaw all those aspects. They never had somebody in charge who really cared about these characters.
But then I think in 3 months, he wrote 10 episodes of something, and now he's halfway through the Superman movie.
So he's written, I think, 7 episodes of the animation series.
Yeah,
and he's
but here's the thing, right? I have to intervene.
But he's a fast writer
because even though
I'm sure he has been,
James Gunn has only been in charge 3 months, and it was right. The thing is, DC had someone in charge. And multiple times they've had someone in charge. It's never been they just didn't have someone in charge. It was just whoever they had in charge didn't do the best job. When we said they had someone who didn't care about the characters, they did. They had Jeff Johns, who was like head advisor, and they had Zack Snyder in, and everything was funneled through Zack Snyder. Let's remember, Aquaman and Wonder Woman both got funneled through Zack Snyder. Right,
yeah,
he may not have directed it, he may not have written it, but those directors, Patty Jenkins, she went to him. The writer of Wonder Woman 1 went to him. James Wan went to him. Right, it's not a question of people went in charge. It's that some of the people in charge did bad jobs, and one key thing that is just
Snyder didn't when it comes to DT, control, right? Dude.
It's not. I'm not saying about having control. I'm not saying about having control, by saying that somebody who is the head of it, right? Because you don't need to be the boss to be the head of it.
So then, if he was the head, who took out the mother boxes from Wonder Woman and Aquaman? Because the mother boxes were supposed to be in there, just like how each, like Thanos with the.
Yes, but obviously he still has to answer to Warner Brothers. Even Kevin Feige, as much as Kevin Feige the king and the goat of MCU, he still has to answer to Disney. If Disney turn around and say to him tomorrow, you know what, Sam Wilson ain't Captain America no more.
There's a key difference there. The biggest difference.
No, but what I say, you're bringing
me out.
Let Sasha finish. Let Sasha finish.
Hear me out. The key difference is when Kevin Feige says this is what we're doing, Bob Iger goes, sure, do it. Because that's what I hired you to do. Not even that's what I hired you to do. That's why I invested in your company to go and make these films, because that was already an established studio. Okay? DC has never had an established studio until now. He's the first CEO that runs DC Studios. Now, sure, there's been other figure puppets before, but it wasn't an official studio. It was still being run the same as every other geriatric film that Warner Brothers makes under their umbrella. Because at the end of the day, you could be Zack Snyder, but if Ann Sarnoff says, oh, you can't have Henry Cavill in the Shazam movie, you're not going to get Henry Cavill in the Shazam movie. If Kevin Sujihara, who was CEO at the time, says, you know what? I want Batman in the next Superman movie, okay, because I see what Marvel's do. Well, guess what? Kevin Sujihara is going to get his Batman versus Superman movie, because guess what? That's what Kevin Sujihara wanted. All right, so
that's not the difference.
No, that is the difference.
No, I said that is the difference.
The real thing is, if Zack Snyder wanted his vision from the get-go of what a Superman 2 would have been, we would have got a Superman 2.
It was announced as a Man of Steel 2.
Because Man of Steel 2, before BVS, we didn't get BVS till that Comic-Con when he did the voice, okay? That was changed because David Goyer wrote an outline for Man of Steel 2, and they were committed
officially announced as, and then it was like a
if
year
you look
later,
at Henry Cavill's statements, he was always like, oh, we're not going to jump into Justice League because there's more to be done with Superman. And this is straight after Man of Steel. And he was committed to that for 2 years until they said we're doing Superman versus Batman, because right after they announced Superman versus Batman, they announced Justice League Parts 1 and Parts 2. So you got to understand, Zack Snyder was protected by, what's his name? Nolan. Because you got to understand, the only reason why Man of Steel got made in the first place is because of David Goyer, okay? And David Goyer got turned down from that script bare times, because you know who owns the rights for Superman? Not Warner Brothers, John fucking Peters, with his obsession with mechanical spiders and stuff. So, my man wants to do the Superman movie. What's that? Nolan, he's no interest in making a Superman movie, but this guy's helped him out with Batman, so he bats for his boy. They hire a director, and Nolan's only contribution to any of these movies is, I do not want Christian Bale as Batman. My trilogy is my trilogy. You know what I mean? I'll help you cast Batman, all right? He was just there just to fan shit until he was out. You know what I mean? And then they kept Charles Roven in from that thing. There's too many parts. Snyder, I'll give him this. I'll give him a clap, because he had to deal with giant spider-wielding fucking nutcase that does hairdressing for Barbra Streisand for a living. He had to deal with fucking people like Ann Sarnoff, Kevin Sujihara, even who I thought was the savior of DC, Jeff Jones, who didn't want him, whatever, I don't care. He fucked up Justice League, all right? He personally wanted Snyder out. He's the one that said, get Whedon. He made Avengers. Well, guess what? You know what? Before, I used to be like, get the guys from the comics. They know what they're talking about. Guess what? The guys from the comics ain't filmmakers. And after watching Justice League, if that was his decision, he fucked up. You know what I mean? And he's written some of the greatest DC comic books of all time. So Snyder did a good job for what he was doing, but don't believe for 1 second he was in control. He wasn't. He had plans, for sure. He had plans. I have plans. You have plans. You know what I mean? We all have plans. We ain't control the shit. You know what I mean?
Can I add something else into this? I mean, Steiner had control. Well, he was meant to have control of the films. That was it, really. Because if you think about it, everything that is done well out of DC is from the TV shows, and the TV shows were all done by Greg Berlanti. Yeah. And all the animation is done by what's the name, James Grigg, and they do well. but they're never been under the umbrella of these other guys. So they always worked alone. And that's why whatever they did had nothing to do with the films. I mean, they were doing other stuff like the last 3 years, last 4 years, they did Doom's Patrol, Titans, and that Stargirl, whatever. Those shows, and the Superman and Lois. These shows are 1,000 times better than the Arrow and the Flash shit that's still going on. And hopefully it's going to end.
Oh, no, it's done. It's done.
It's done?
Flash is its final season.
It's his final season. Anyway, they're a lot better than them. And it's because what they did was, instead of hiring just, TV show writers and TV show directors and doing their job, they went and found one show that has been doing very well in CW, which was Supernatural. And they hired all the showrunners. James Carver is doing that, and it's now also going to be doing everything else. I mean, everybody from Eric Kripke's World of Magic, whatever, from Supernatural, they're running the shows, and they're doing fucking amazing. Look, The Boys. And look at Doom's Patrol, Titus, and then the next bunch of movies are coming out. And they just got horror writers to come and do it. And they're slightly separate from this world. And this only the reason they were able to do this the way they were doing it because nobody really gave a shit about Supernatural. And they could do whatever the hell they wanted to because they were making a lot of money elsewhere. That said, now it's underneath one guy. Yeah. Now we can swear at him if anything goes wrong.
We could bat this back and forth all night. Yeah. So what I would say is, pretty much James Gunn said is there's been a big disconnect in film and TV with the DC properties. Okay, and they need to correct that. Now, from what I know with the Flash, and again, minor spoilers, but because this has been announced, but Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton are in that. We're going to get to Batman. But I think there's about maybe 3 versions of the Flash in this movie. So again, it's not a case of just replacing one actor because it's filmed multiple parts. General Zod has been announced in this movie. Okay, Supergirl is supposed to be in this movie. And what I would say is, based on the characters that are in this movie, it was always kind of a reset point with the Flash because they were rewriting origins of existing characters. So whatever reshoots they may have done, they're back out, and I think it's going to be very much what it was originally intended to be. What DC have made 2 big mistakes in the last few years. One was actually releasing the Snyder Cut, because what that did is that gave into fan bullying power in a sense. Now I enjoyed it, and partly I'm glad that we got it. But as my creative control head on, I would have never greenlit that because it's like, no, that is dead, that is done. And 2, letting The Rock persuade Dwayne Johnson to persuade him to put Henry Cavill in at the end of Black Adam, because that is what has turned most people off the DC and James Gunn and the job he has to do, because they want Cavill. They've seen Cavill come back. They've seen him in the suit. They saw how excited he was for it. You had the John Williams theme music. We were all hyped at the end of that movie. And then it's like, yeah, he's back. He's back. Now he's not back. That put Gunn in an incredibly difficult position because someone coming in to correct that course had to start fresh. They had to reset it. You couldn't pick up and make something decent with those characters. And again, Cavill's 39. If they're planning the next 10 years, he's going to be 49, 50. You can't have that 50-year-old Superman, especially when the movies are only going to be coming every 2-3 years. He's too old for it now. They need to cast somebody sort of like late 20s, very early 30s, if they want that longevity. And especially if they want them to voice characters and stuff like that. They're all too old. Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, they're all too old to see this through for another 10 years. So it had to be a reset point. I fully believe that the Flash and Aquaman will be recast. Yes, Aquaman 2 is going to come out, but I wouldn't be surprised if they put a post-credit scene at the end of Aquaman, which ties into the Flash to reconfirm, yeah, we're done now. That is it. Blue Beetle, that's a movie on its own. So I think that is definitely something that can continue on if it does well, because the movie is not connected into the DC any part. Shazam, what's the guy who's playing Shazam?
Zachary Levi.
Zachary Levi. He said stuff about medicine not being right and vaccines and prayer being the answer, and people have turned on him on social media for that now. So again, he's done himself no favors. He might see himself out the door. But with a reset does come some continuity, because it's not a case of point saying, right, what has happened before is done. that is it. Like Neil said earlier, we're going to get some characters coming back. The second show that's being released is Waller. Again, Viola Davis coming back. She's going to be teaming up with characters in Peacemaker. Again, that is James Gunn's world. He is keeping his characters. Yeah, he wrote those stories. He wrote those characters like, yeah, we're going to hit reset, but those are mine. I'm keeping them. And fair play to him. It's his toy box. He can play with whatever toys he wants. You know, I loved Peacemaker. I think Viola Davis is fantastic. Would I want to see more of that? Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Should James Gunn keep throwing his wife into cameos in the movies? Probably not. Yeah. So it's just a case of finding the right balance. But there's definitely room for some characters to come back. Jason Momoa went on social media recently and said, oh, he's really happy. He's got this like big announcement. Is that his Aquaman is going to continue? Or is, again, he playing another character because he's been wanting to play
Lobo?
What's the Lobo? So has he been told, yeah, you know what, Aquaman's done, but we're going to have something else for you to play, you know, and maybe he's excited about that. At the moment, we don't know. So until that very end of Aquaman 2, they will come out and give us more information, you know, and they'll say this is where it's at. But saying that, let's talk about the 8 to 10 year plan. It's good. So the DCU is going to be reshaped. It is going to be called Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Okay, maybe the first part of it will be like Chapter 0. It might be, again, everything prior might be put into Elseworlds. We'll have to see what happens in terms of that. But yeah, we're moving on. My only question to you guys is, and so many people have asked about this online, why it's not happening. I have my reasons for it. Because there are Elseworlds available, would you guys see or want a Man of Steel 2 as part of Elseworlds as opposed to necessarily connecting to the DCU? Is that something that you would still want to see?
No.
Not really. I'm actually excited for this.
Not if they're doing this whole like starting from fresh, because I think it'll confuse people. But also, if it ends up being good, people will be like, "Well, hold on, I want this to be my Superman in the main universe."
It's exactly what you mentioned when you said about seeing the Snyder Cut. Is to me, I mean, we're gonna get into it, but to me, I like keeping anything. Unless if you're gonna keep something, you need to Elseworld it. To me. Because I'm like, you're going to say you're starting fresh. You're not starting fresh because you've cherry picked the things you want to get. And I understand your point, Ken, where you say he wrote these characters, he established these, so, you know, he's keeping what he established. But that said, I'm like, the layman, the person who's not one of the six of us, or, you know, someone who's heavily into this stuff, isn't going to really be like, oh, wow, you know, wait a minute, there's two Batmen. You know, you're going to get people who, like, when they know that, there's, like, when we get to, you know, the Batman, they're going to be like, hold on, why isn't Robert Pattinson in this? Why isn't he in this role? And they're going to get someone who's going to ask you, oh, why isn't this character in here? Why isn't that character in there?
We're at the point where we got 3 Jokers.
Yeah, you're continuing the trend. To me, you're continuing the trend that sank the last DC ship. By keeping anything, right? By keeping anything and or not to say keeping anything, by not scrapping everything to say Elseworld, everything you see here is brand new and fresh. By not doing that, you're just it's the equivalent of, to me, it's the equivalent of being like, you know what? The lifeboats from the Titanic, well, they floated, so we're going to keep them and just build a new ship. And I'm like, bro, the stigma's still there. They still got Titanic written across the side of them.
I do think that Waller and Peacemaker can be separate. Now, here's the thing, because I don't think there should be a Man of Steel 2. Again, that if you're resetting, that needs to be gone. Yeah. Now, how about this? Did James Gunn know about the Flash, the resets, and the future of the DCU when he made Peacemaker? Because at the end of it, they did not show Cavill and they did not show Ben Affleck's Batman or any versions that they're faceless. But you still had Aquaman, and you still had the Flash. Could they actually still both be as part of the DCU moving forward?
I think that's more just a thing of actors' availabilities and actors' willingness, because.
But we knew Affleck was out, and we knew Cavill was out at that point, right?
Exactly.
So we pretty much knew that. But it's interesting that we did get that post-credit scene, and they were the two actors aren't there that aren't definitely not coming back. But there's potential for the other ones, so it could still very much tie into that timeline of the Peacemaker, because they could have been another Batman and Superman. Just saying.
It's possible.
But again, as it's a reset, we're going to be looking at different timelines. So the Flash will do a reset. So whoever those characters are, they're going to be whoever they are. So, okay. Anybody else want a Man of Steel 2 before we move on?
No.
Okay.
I'm too excited for this one.
I feel for Cavill. They were a dick to him. Absolutely. I feel that he didn't get to justify this character and do what he wanted with it. He was so excited to announce he was back, and he was like, it's going to be a hopeful character. It's going to be this, that, and the other. But man, did they fucking dick him around. And I won't forgive Dwayne Johnson for that, because he's like he did say his film was going to change the hierarchy of the DCU, and it did, because it tanked and they had to get someone else in. So anyway, he brought Superman, and Superman ain't coming.
He brought Superman back.
Okay, we don't like him, so we don't like him for that, because he teased us.
Can I just drop one thing? 15 years to write the Black Adam script, and that's the best that they got. I'm just putting it out there. 15 years. 15
and
years.
the fact that he dropped that spoiler before the movie came out, we all knew how trash that movie was going to be.
Yeah.
He had to get people.
The other problem, we also found out that he fought to make Black Adam a separate film as well.
Yeah, because originally Shazam was supposed to have both of them, and he was like, no,
exactly.
Black Adam.
I think it would have been better if that was the case, because the first Shazam movie was actually decent.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, he's in the first Shazam.
Is it?
If you see the little bit where the wizard is showing Billy Batson, the last time we gave someone powers, I'm like that little gold hologram.
Yeah.
That's Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if they'll do like a Return of the Jedi with a retcon him back into that. So, like, just change it so it's actually him in it. Okay, so Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. We're finally there. I don't know how long we've been talking, but 50
minutes.
Right. So we're going to street through this. Okay, so the first thing being released is... Yeah, so the first one being released is Creature Commandos, animated series written by James Gunn. We've got a little poster of all the characters. I know nothing about these characters except for Weasel, and I'm supposing this is Weasel from Suicide Squad, because if you saw the post-credit scene, he is about. And yeah, he's written all the episodes himself. Obviously, that was fairly quick. They're probably like 20-minute animation episodes, I'm thinking, not long, but I think there's maybe 7 of them. Any thoughts on Creature Commandos? You know any of these characters? Is it just kind of a new version of the Suicide Squad?
This will be... Yeah, it will be your new Suicide Squad. It'll probably be, I mean, depending on the rating, because if it's like R-rated or if it's for children, but for the most part, I imagine this being your Guardians of the Galaxy X Suicide Squad. This is, it'll be comedic. It'll be James Gunn's type of humor. And it will just be introducing a bunch of characters. It's the soft way in.
It is, and it's something they can get out quickly with on a relatively low budget to kind of set these new characters up. Because if we have to wait for a movie, that's another 2 years' time. So they need to introduce some other stuff first to get the ball rolling. Any other thoughts on Creature Commandos?
It'd be a great way to put some voices to like if they've cast someone and they just haven't announced it, then that person will turn up. Can
you imagine if they cast Superman, didn't tell us, and he showed up in that show, and we had to guess from the voice? How crazy would that be?
Look it up.
I mean, it would be a dream come true if they did that.
That'd be amazing, right?
And the person came in, and then when it was like in the credits, it says Superman. It was like, you'll find out later.
Yeah, I think that'd be amazing.
You'll find out later.
I think that'd be such a cool way to introduce someone. But anyway,
especially if they do cast an unknown, because that
right.
People obviously wouldn't really know who they're at.
And from a social media point of view, they'll be going crazy. Everyone trying to match it to something else that they've seen where they think they know the voice. It'd be like the Masked Singer. Everybody guessing who the bloody Masked Singer. They'd be like, "Who is Superman? Who is Superman?" I think that'd be genius. I think that'd be genius. Okay, so then we've got the next TV series, again, HBO Max is going to be Waller. Viola Davis, she's coming back. She's going to team up with characters from Peacemaker. It's going to involve the creators and writers of the TV series The Watchmen and Doom Patrol. What are our thoughts on Waller?
I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit, well, I'm 50-50 because, yeah, similar to Neil, I'm a bit like, oh, okay, so you're wiping the slate clean, but you're keeping what you did. So I do feel a little bit like, because that was, I think we discussed on a previous podcast, I was a bit like, look, I love Peacemaker, but if you are going to wipe the slate clean, you've got to be ruthless and you've got to get rid of your own shit too.
But it's not a clean slate, it's a reset.
No.
So,
yeah. So depending on how they do it, but I am looking for, I mean, you know, Viola Davis is great as the character. And yeah, depending on what characters from Peacemaker they bring in and how they're going to do it, you know, I'm looking forward to it and interested in it for sure.
Before the podcast started, I think I mentioned it's very similar to like James Bond and then bringing M back from the Pierce Brosnan franchise version of the character to the Daniel Craig version of the character. Yeah. Because everyone loved the person playing that character. And it was seamless. It's not like they were reintroducing that character as just a character. And Viola Davis will do that with Waller. She'll just step in back to exactly how she was. Yes, okay, she appeared at the end of Black Adam, and it's just her being her. So that can definitely be a continuation of the character because we've not seen a build-up and an origin story from that character or anything like that, or an endpoint to that.
So is that what this is going to be, an origin?
I mean, there might be flashbacks. You know, in terms of showing us a little bit more about her and how she got to where she's going to be, which I think I would enjoy. I would probably like to see the series like that, flashback a little bit, her seeing her come up, and then move to current day and see what's playing out current day. But
for me, it's going to be setting a tone for this Gunn and Peters era. You know, so we'll see how these guys are running the show because these are different writers and the directors that's going to be doing this show, not them, right? So see how they're managing them.
Imagine Gunn's going to be like an executive producer on it, but he's not actually writing it or anything.
So we'll see how they manage other people and see how what I call materials producer underneath them.
Yeah. That'll probably be a bigger test than we are,
especially for the tone
expecting. Because
because like James Gunn says, he says storytelling is king, but he wants directors and writers with unique visions. So. The characters need to be the characters, but in terms of the storytelling and how it's portrayed, we can get some variances. So, like you say, there'll be somebody taking over some characters that he's written. Well, not Waller because she already existed, but it'd be interesting to see, especially when those Peacemaker characters come in, are they the same vibe or not? So then we have up next is our first feature film, and he pretty much said this is like the real start of the new DCU, which is Superman Legacy, which. I was surprised. Again, James Gunn is writing. Didn't see that happening. I know that J.J. Abrams was working on a Superman script previously. That was something that was potentially going to be happening. But this is set for a July 11th, 2025 release date. So that's the only release date they've put down. But that's your benchmark to say, right, that is the first movie. So, but there may have been another date. I'm not sure, but that's definitely a fixed one. So... we are going to do a separate podcast where we're going to sort of like recast our DCU with characters. We pretty much know that this is going to be a Superman in situ. It's not going to be an origin story. He is going to be working at the Daily Planet, and we're going to have those characters. What have you read it, guys?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So is Superman Legacy the actual name of a comic book, or is it
it's All-Star?
Superman All-Star. Right.
All-Star Superman.
All-Star Superman. It's by Grant Morrison and... Oh, there you go. You can see it.
Right so that's the picture that they displayed along with it.
Yeah. This is from a free copy because I've got the book. It has a different, what I call cover to it. It's a brilliant one. It's a seasoned Superman. But it's the also a death of Superman sort of a thing because something happens... I'm going to keep the spoilers away.
You can announce it. It's not going to happen.
Fine. It's not going to be. It's not going to be relative to the comic.
Lex Luthor does something which makes Superman fly the shit thing into the sun, which over how do you say it? Overdose of energy. It's an overdose of energy. Basically, his cells are bursting to pieces, and he knows he has a very limited time before he dies. So he decides he needs to do certain things before he does. And over the 12 issues, right?
Yeah,
Neil?
12.
Yeah, 12 issues. He does, in every issue, he does one thing. And then it keeps on going. And basically, you see, it's a very nice, very pleasant, different type of Superman in this. It's someone who is wise, understands, and you see very different aspects of Superman, only not working within Earth, but also in different planets as well.
They should have done that with Cavill, and they could have.
So then they could have killed him off. Yeah,
it's a
Man of Steel
really
2
good book.
back on.
It's one of my it's one of my favorite books. So yeah,
okay.
It is one of the rare Superman stories I did find great.
Yeah,
okay, so what are you guys wanting from your Superman then? What kind of story do you want to see? Because for me, that the best Superman is still the original Christopher Reeves movie, and I think Superman today is very hard to necessarily get on screen correctly with the powers that he has in the world, and that is what I do like about Superman and Lois, because he has some big problems, but it's done very well. The trouble is with these big budget movies, everything is end of the world shit all the time, and you always have to keep topping it. So I think we want to see a little bit more localized, probably a little bit more lower key Superman. Is that what we think we need to start off with before it starts getting into the bigger realms?
I mean, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I had the day this stuff got announced, I had a conversation with Sash, and I said that starting anything with Superman is the worst possible decision you could ever make.
Thing is, go on.
Because Superman he's the end product. He's the end goal. No matter what happens, once Superman is in it, you don't get higher than Superman from a heroic standpoint. All right, all you have now is villains that are somewhat close to him, and then maybe there's one who's a little bit better, but then that villain is lacking something that he has, which makes him win, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just like you starting anything with Superman, you to me, it's the equivalent of starting the MCU at Endgame or at Infinity War. You're already starting with the biggest gun you got. That said,
do you not think he's kind of painted into a corner there for the fact that you still got a Flash and Aquaman movie coming out? You've got the Batman, so you can't really start with Batman. Do you not think he was limited to the characters he could have picked to start the DCU off?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think you can start with any character, right? It's not just about how you introduce them. Or it's not just about who the character is, it's how you introduce them. The fact that we're going to have multiple multiple Batman, the fact that we're going to have multiple other characters existing in period in this cinematic realm, it doesn't matter who you start with. That said, if we have as you said, Ken, a localized Superman, as in it's not end of the world shit, it's end of the city shit.
Yeah.
That would be more interesting. Or to me, that seems more interesting. If I've seen every film I've ever watched, I've seen Superman save the world.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, goddammit, Ken, you hit the nail on the head when you said
so basically you want to see Clark Kent save the hood, right?
Yeah, I want to see. I'm
not even joking. I'm not even joking.
Right.
Look, if you follow Superman comics, I haven't since the 90s, but in the 90s, Intergang was a big threat.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You have Superman. If Superman at the end of the movie is flying, a kryptonite-laced emerging country into space, if he's killing the only other Kryptonian that exists, if he's anything like that, the movie is not worth its salt, because everyone knows about Superman and is like, yes, Superman, and it's all about hope and everything. I need to see Clark Kent embody hope.
So how about this? How about the meteor that he lands on? Obviously, and following it comes kryptonite. What if kryptonite became like you get with vibranium,
Mm.
and it starts being used to be built in all sorts of shit.
No, that happens. See,
So kryptonite starts becoming part of the world, and he's having, and that suppresses him.
No, it does happen in some comics, but let me put it this way: Superman does really well when it's
they did that in Smallville.
it really does well when the villain is amazingly smart, localized, and let's say in Metropolis, right? Not the world thing, but whoever is the opposition to that guy is amazingly smart, and not only out tricks him, but is out tricking everybody. And that's where you see Hope and all his powers, not on the grand scale, but on the small scale sort of thing. Yeah. But the other ones where he does really well.
Scale. And Superman's only be as good as whoever you cast as Lex.
Exactly.
And it don't even need to be Lex. It could be Maxwell Lord. It could be anyone.
That's
I just like
that's why I didn't take a name.
Yeah, but it just needs to be, to me personally, you want to establish Superman, establish Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Make me give a shit about Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then I will give a shit about Superman.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just killing time until I see him fly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Or the other time is the same thing. It's like Sasha's right about the gang thing as well, because there were certain type of stories you did, and there's certain other stories people have done where you never knew who the head of the gang was, but they were really shitting up the city and killing people. It's like Batman meets, but a Superman version where he is basically trying to hunt as a journalist, trying to figure out who the head of the gang is. So as a Superman, he catches him, and during that time, he does a lot of saves and that sort of thing. But otherwise, Superman does really well in the world-ending sort of a thing, where you have all the other characters. You have the Flash, you have the Green Lantern, you have everybody, and they all are fighting. And at the end, essentially, where Superman comes in and saves everything. But everybody has an equal part. It's not like he comes and saves everybody. Everybody does something. But everybody gets more than 20 minutes, Not like the end of the world where everybody is in the same screen. Everybody is doing something by their own sort of thing. So
part of me would have just reset this like Justice League War, like they did with the animated series and I think the comics.
Beautiful beginning.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just throw them all in there. Darkseid's there. It's all freaking kicking off. They don't know each other, but they're all suddenly having to work together, and then they figure out who each other is. That is another way to go, but obviously they're going to go.
Another way which would be quite interesting if they did a film about Lois, or the reporter reporting and had a completely separate storyline, and then there was these sort of miracle saves going on, which then that sort of like introduced and starts the Clark Kent thing.
Yep.
And
Nice.
solitary
Nice.
stuff.
I always dreamed of
like the X-Files, but it's super.
Yeah.
Right?
I always dreamed, right?
It could be her. It could be Lois and Jimmy. Yeah, so writer or photographer, and they're trying to capture this supernatural shit, and it ends up being Superman.
And
I like
Skinner
that
is
that.
what's his name? The head editor.
Yeah, White. Exactly.
Yeah, very white.
Yeah. Very white.
That's the thing, right?
And the smoking man is Lex. Boom! We got to show people.
I always thought, you know what? You start with the vigilantes, not because I love Batman, right? You start with the people who have no powers, just motivation. And then you move up to people like Wonder Woman and the Flash, who, you could look at them and see them do their superheroing, and you could think, you know what? Maybe that woman just has a shit ton of steroids in her. Maybe that guy's wearing a suit that makes him move that fast, until you build to the crescendo of Superman and you're like, oh shit, that's a superhero. Right?
I think, they're very much establishing, they've already called it Gods and Monsters because they're making it very clear. Gods are among us, monsters are among us.
Yeah.
Shit's hit the fan. But anyway,
Plus,
so let's move
Superman's a big gun, though, isn't he? So you've got, the reset. They want to come out swinging with the big,
Yeah, I think it's
more, rather than that slow build.
I think if you had a completely clear slate where we didn't have movies for a few years, I don't think they would have started with Superman. I think they would have gone elsewhere, but we won't know. Right, then we've got another TV show.
I would have went opposite. I would have went opposite. I would have went big. We went big. But you know how I would have started? No origin story. I don't want to see no origin story.
No, exactly. Same.
The closest you could get to origin story is like in the opening credits. Okay, you retell the birth, you retell Zod, like in animation form or something as the credits are rolling. And
you know, like they did in Spider-Man 2, but they showed the first Spider-Man within the credits, just like
something like that. But you don't see Superman's face because, like, you know what I mean. But you do it in the and you take the best bits, because what you've got to think about is original Richard Donner, Superman 1 and Superman 2, and Man of Steel. It's the same fucking story. Zod comes, takes over. Okay, Superman the movie had Lex, but you know what I mean? They saved their Lex for BVS, but no one cares about that. We can introduce Lex in this movie. You know what I mean? And like have our own non-Jesse Eisenberg show up. But like with Zod and that, you do it in the opening credits. And I'm sorry, give me my John Williams music and give me my dun 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 with the credits going towards the screen.
Yeah, let it go, man. It ain't happening.
No. Because that shit gave that franchise identity. You see a James Bond movie without a gun barrel? Well, guess what? They tried it and people uproared, okay? And then it came back, all right? So give me my credits and give me him flying at the end and smiling at the camera. I'm done. You can do whatever you want in between, okay? You can do whatever you want in between.
Superman was the first superhero on screen to break the fourth wall.
Yeah, that's all I want. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's all I want.
Well, they could do it in complete reverse. You know, just why don't they start making films about the villains first rather than than Superman? Do a film
no. Because you know what? That's how we go end up with the Joker. And I know a lot of people love it, but I don't. So like, y'all can stick with the heroes.
I mean, Lex Luthor is basically Andrew Tate, isn't he? So,
damn. Okay, let's move on to the next HBO show, which is going to be Lanterns. So this is going to be about the Green Lanterns. It's going to have Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan. The premise is very much sort of like in the vein of True Detective. But space cops, basically. So they're going to be trying to discover something. They've discover a terrifying mystery, which will play out into the larger DCU. So I'd imagine that's going to be sort of like a Brainiac or Darkseid or something that they're going to discover in space and outside of Earth, and that is going to be recognized as being playing a bigger part. We haven't obviously had anything Green Lantern wise until since Ryan Reynolds.
He's reprising his role.
Yeah, we were supposed to get a Green Lantern at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, but they changed it. So he actually filmed it all with the Green Lantern, but the studio just wouldn't let them use the character because they were supposed to have had this series in development. But whatever series they had, it's changing now. It's going to be redone. What are your thoughts on finally seeing Green Lanterns back on the screen and in this kind of series and environment?
I want Jon Stewart. I want Jon Stewart as the Lantern. I want him as the lead. Fuck Hal Jordan. Jon Stewart all the way. Let's go. That's it.
Do you know what my biggest interest in it is? The fact that it's called Lanterns. It's not called Green Lanterns. So I'm invested in the fact that I'm like, I'm going to see multiple colors. I'm going to see blue lanterns, orange lantern, green lanterns, yellow lanterns. Especially, I need to see some red lanterns. But I'm fairly confident. Obviously, they haven't even started filming. They haven't cast anybody, to my knowledge. But I'm just like, you called it Lanterns for a reason.
It's a good shout. Any other thoughts on Lanterns?
Just interested to see if they do well, man, because the last one was a joke. I mean, it wasn't even.
Sounds like it's going to be a little bit like a buddy. It sounds like it's going to be a bit of like a buddy cop movie. Really,
it could be.
So.
The thing is, weirdly enough, they've chosen arguably the best two Lanterns to have as runners to the show, because Hal Jordan is your atypical, cocky, like not cocky, but like full of himself. Like, I am very confident in what I do. My decision making is right. Guy. And then you have Jon Stewart, who's an architect to begin with, so he is absolutely laser focused on everything being 100% right. So you've got that rigidness of this has to be, A1 inch perfect, versus Hal Jordan, who is, for lack of a more accurate term, he's like Tom Cruise in Top Gun. He's like, I am that good.
The Maverick, yeah.
But I'm the Maverick, so to speak, of it.
Do you think we're going to get that? So like it's maybe a slightly more senior John and like a younger Hal? Do you think they're going to
No.
go like a Riggs and Mortar, you know, kind of
I don't
thing?
think they. I don't think they
You're
can.
telling me we can't get Tom Cruise as Hal Jordan? I would buy that for $1, man.
Yeah, but hey, look, as long
Dude
as he
is
still
60.
has that, as long as he still has that clause in his contract, you ain't never seeing it, right?
That is, it's a TV show.
Yeah, but
TV show.
It's not the fact that it's a film or TV show. It's still that clause. That's the killer. He's got a clause in all of his contracts that you can never recreate his likeness. That's why there's no toys, no action figures, no nothing.
I thought you meant the other clause. He doesn't do TV shows.
Who's this? That clause. Everybody can have that clause. That clause will disappear with the right amount of paychecks, right?
Yeah.
But
Have you ever wondered why you've never seen a Tom Cruise action figure?
They tried to shove Top Gun to streaming, and he wasn't having any of it, bro. He went to war with Paramount over that. And, and you know what happened? It came out in cinemas. He proved them wrong.
Yeah.
Proved them wrong.
But what I was saying with why we can't kind of have that kind of senior figure with Hal Jordan and John Stewart is because Hal Jordan is always seen as this iteration of Green Lantern. He is the first. He is the guy. He is the Green Lantern. Obviously, there was a Green Lantern before him, but that was a very different Green Lantern, very different power set, very different thing. But of the Green Lanterns we know, with the whole, there is a planet, there is, Oa and all of that, Hal Jordan is the first human.
See, my introduction to Green Lantern was through Justice League animated series. I only ever knew John Stewart. I didn't know about Hal Jordan until much later. So I do like the fact that they've gone with both of them because it stops the bitching about which one they're doing. So anyway, right, then our next movie is coming out, which is The Authority. So this is a group of superheroes who think the world is broken and they will fix it by any means necessary. So basically they're going to make some unpleasant decisions about maybe how things are dealt with. Do you guys know anything about The Authority, the characters, or what this might entail?
I actually don't.
No, but it sounds like The Boys, so I'm interested.
It is basically less violent.
I wonder if it's going to be like the Eternals. You know, where it's going to have like people that are trying to shape the world, but some have got different views on how it should be done. It sounds a little bit to me like the Eternals.
Well, with The Authority, generally they kind of all tend to flow in the same direction.
Okay.
But I think what it is I mean, James Gunn has a talent for taking obscure characters and putting them front and center.
Who knew about Guardians of the Galaxy before that movie, right?
Well, The Authority The Authority used to be a Wildstorm comic.
Yeah.
So it used to be. So if you know who Jim Lee is, Jim Lee.
Yeah.
Head of DC, current head of DC. Before he was current head of DC, he was one of the best comic book. He still is one of the best comic book artists in the business.
Yeah.
X-Men. He started off in X-Men back in the 90s. The look of the animated series was based on his artwork, as well as all the Capcom games and stuff. He's mainly the guy. What we identify with X-Men from our childhood is Jim Lee's art, basically. So
Jim Lee is the artist that got me into comics.
Yeah, but a lot of people into comics. Him, Todd McFarlane, all those guys.
Yeah.
Now they all formed a company called Image, Image Comics, Spawn, all of that stuff, Darkness, all of that. Image Comics. So
Walking Dead is Image.
So jumping off of
Image.
Yeah, jumping off of Image, he decided to make his own thing called Wildstorm.
Yeah.
And that's where The Authority were at. Now, DC bought Wildstorm, and that's how Lee got into DC, and then he started drawing for DC there, worked his way up the rank, and now he's running it. So, you know what I mean? There must have been a conversation there where, the head of DC Comics was like, yo, get my characters, in there. And, I'm pretty sure now they're part of, like, the DC comic universe.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure because I've not read a comic book since, I don't know, the early 2000s. So
no, they are. They are
okay.
in a similar way that the Watchmen characters are now part of DC, like officially.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not too much of a fan of that, but then I won't knock until I try it. So but yeah, that's kind of where that's coming from. Do I know what their shtick is? I really don't. You know what I mean? Really don't. I know a couple of his own characters that he made, like Backlash and What was that one with that computer guy? It was about hacking, and like it was really cool in the 90s, and then now it's not so cool because technology has evolved, and you're like, that's a bunch of crap, and I've forgotten what it's called now. But there was loads of really obscure comics around that time, man. Because it was like the whole, oh my god, issue 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Issue 1.
Savage Dragon.
Savage Dragon. Oh yeah, that was that Jim Lee? Savage Dragon? I don't think it was. Could be wrong.
I think
No, it was Image, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was Jim Lee.
I think he did some of the artwork. I don't know if he created the character.
Okay. Well, you know, if the motherfucker had fucked up legs, that'd be Rob Layfield's job. But...
So the Authority, we don't know too much about, but I think it's going to be a big spectacle type of movie. So we'll see what that brings. Next, we move on to another TV show, which is Paradise Lost. So this is based on Paradise Island or Themyscira, basically the home world of Wonder Woman. Very much, they say it's going to be kind of Game of Thrones style, like the whole of Westeros. Sounds really intriguing. I like the idea of that. So I guess the only part is, are we going to hope? I don't believe we'll see again another origin story of Wonder Woman. So I think she's going to be established on that world. But whether it's just a case of, is she already of age?
No, I think it's going to be like
somebody?
House of the Dragon. Where it'll be like...
Yeah, because I'm thinking maybe she's already have appeared on Earth and then she's back home. So I think she goes between the two. And I think
is this animated?
No,
it's live action.
It's live action, I believe.
Yeah. So it all depends on where Wonder Woman fits into this, whether she's in the series at all. Is it set before? Is it like a prequel and then like see Wonder Woman be born? And
didn't I hear something? Didn't someone say it was a prequel, or am I?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a prequel. It's set before Diana.
Oh, is it set before Diana?
Yeah,
right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But I don't know how long before. But I'm. I would.
So we'll probably see her back in the show, right?
She might be a kid or something like that. I don't know. Like a young Diana. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's before.
Okay. Fine.
She's Wonder Woman.
Sounds intriguing. We could do with that kind of show. Any thoughts?
I hope that they utilize this to establish a great mythos, because I think the core difference. I'm going to try and brush on a tangent, but not go deep into one. The difference between Marvel and DC is Marvel characters are people who become heroes. DC's characters are usually they're like archetypes of gods and demigods. Probably why it's called gods and monsters, right? It's like the heroes of DC are basically like the Greek gods or the Roman gods.
Actually, yeah, I would like the Paradise Lost will bring all the what I call old gods in, like the Hawkman, all those guys. Their backstories come into through Paradise Lost will be fun.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
But I think the only problem I guess I have with that show is you kind of have an endpoint.
Yeah, but that's a good thing, isn't it?
Like, if the show is a super, super far back prequel, then we have it running from when there is women and men on the island, and they probably have interactions with the Greek gods and stuff, to then the point of when the island gets closed off.
But you could do big time jumps. If you look at House of Dragon, they do significant time jumps through that first season. So they could very much do it in that kind of vein. Start really early, like you say, some of the mythos behind it all, and then move it forward quite quickly. 10 years, 15-year jump, and just move it forward.
That is the point.
That's the only slight reservation I've got, is that obviously it's going to be HBO as well. So you're going to have House of Dragons and Paradise Lost. Island or Lost. And if not obviously the stories will be different, but if they've got that sort of Game of Thronesy look, it's going to,
Well, I think one thing we will have is there will be a massive, humongous difference in aesthetic, because with House of the Dragon or with Westeros, the whole world is, it's quite, for lack of a better or more accurate term, it's quite British.
Grimy.
That's true. Yeah,
grass. It's very grassy and hilly, and right. Whereas Paradise Island is probably going to be a paradise.
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 No,
You know, an idyllic island. You know, there'll be beaches, there'll be real sand and clear blue oceans, and you know, maybe there's some palm tree areas, and you know, it's going to look like a tropical island.
No detective looking for murder.
Unless they change it all, and Westeros actually becomes Paradise Island.
Yeah.
Maybe it connects. So House of Dragon, you have Game of Thrones Westeros, and that becomes Paradise Island. Because they do talk about the old gods and the new. So,
yeah, because in House of Dragon, they actually do talk about the old island where they all ran from, didn't they?
Or it could be the other way, exactly. Maybe this was said before, in Games of Thrones' way, they basically go back into the Dark Ages. But there we go. Okay, so the next movie we have is the Batman movie. So not the Batman, sorry, it's going to be a Batman movie. It's going to be Batman, the Brave and the Bold. It is going to be Batman,
soap opera,
kind of middle-aged, so where Superman might be younger. I don't know whether they're going to do Superman and Batman as similar ages or not, but he's going to be probably at least mid-age, or you know, so probably in his 30s. Because he's going to have a son, Damien. I mean, he could be 20 and just have, you know, teenage pregnancy.
Yeah.
But he's going to have Damian Wayne as Robin. Now, we don't know whether this is going to be. I'd imagine this is going to be a Batman who's had previous Robins, who are probably going to be mentioned, and now he has Damian Wayne as Robin. So, what do you guys want to see for that? Do you want to see a slightly older Batman who's been around and established and had a few Robins, and now this is the current Robin? Or do you say, actually, this is the first Robin, it just happens to be his son? What do you guys want to see?
I'm with you on that. You've got to have. You've got to have night
circumstances. I will flip a motherfucking table if they say Damian Wayne is the first Robin. I will launch a table into outer space. I don't care, right? Because the thing is, for those who don't know, there are multiple Robins prior to Damian Wayne. And the difference between all of them is that all of these Robins prior to you were talking about, Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, all of them learn under Batman.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever skills they have prior, they learn under Batman. Damian learns under his mother and his grandfather, who are Talia and Ra's al Ghul, respectively. He learns to kill before he has two numbers in his birth. Right? Before he's got two numbers in his age, he can kill grown men. Obviously, we know Batman is supposed to have his established one rule: he does not kill. So it's the dynamic of a hyper assassin being taught, don't kill people. Yeah, and you need to establish other Robins before that, because you need to see Batman succeed before you see him fail.
I mean, James Gunn mentioned about being the introduction of sort of the Bat family. So I'm imagining there's going to be a Nightwing present who's going to be that first Robin. So to me, Batman does need to be that little bit older, right?
Yeah. It's got to be old.
And I think he needs to be older than probably the rest of them to kind of establish that.
Well, the Joker, well, no, I would say the Joker. The way I've always kind of envisioned it is, from all my previous knowledge and previous dealings with the comic book characters, and I think Alex will be able to tell me if I'm wrong with this one, Batman was only Batman for about a year before he got Dick Grayson as Robin. So if we say he comes out as Batman at age 20, by 21 he's got his first Robin. Let's say by 25 he's moved on to Jason Todd. You know, even if you say Robins are Robins for like a 5-year cycle, you can say that he's 35 by the time Damian pops up, which would mean that, depending on Damian's age, he was in his early to mid 20s when him and Talia was, you know, making a decent backs, right? And that way you can have, and to be honest, that works nicely, because you'll have a mid to late 30s Batman trying to deal with this 10-year-old who basically believes, I'm 10 in my body, but in my mind I'm 25.
I'm thinking older.
Because I suppose if if that's like 15 years after he first starts, then I suppose that does allow for Nightwing to be sort of like, you know, of a certain age as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can't skip. Well, obviously you are going to skip over Dick Grayson to an extent, and that you're not going to maybe see him as Robin, but you've got to have him in there. And so if he's already established as Nightwing, it gives you at least the opportunity, maybe not obviously in this first movie, but down the road, to sort of relate things back to Damian by having sort of like flashbacks of, you know, a young Dick Grayson as Robin or whatever the case would be. So you've got the opportunity to tell some of those stories. You know, if you're going to do something like a Red Hood down the road again, you know, I mean, they've done it well in the animated movie, which was based off the comic. You know, you do something like that where again you're showing Jason Todd as Robin. So I think you've got to have them there. So you can't just go, Damian is the first ever Robin.
So they have to do something different.
Obviously, at the moment, Damian is Robin in the comics. So I think for the younger audience, he's going to be the go-to, which makes sense. But to sort of, again, wipe the slate clean and not have any of the others would do a disservice to those characters.
Yeah. No,
has anybody seen Titans?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so
I've not seen the latest season, but I've
they put him.
I've not seen the latest
season 3 when they introduced the Red Hood storyline.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the one I've not seen yet.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's problematic to have Damian because the best Batman to be father to Damian is the one that you're wiping the slate off of. You know, I'm like, of every person that's ever played Batman, I don't think any live action Batman, I don't think anyone is better suited to have Damian as their Robin than Ben Affleck. So whoever you pick, gonna be
How about this, Neil? So obviously, it's been a long time, I must admit, since I've read any comics, let alone some Batman comics. But obviously, I know one of the latest stuff I was reading was when Bruce Wayne was presumed dead again.
Oh yeah, and Dick Grayson
Dick Grayson took over as Batman and had Damian as Robin. So what if, like, movie 1 is, like you say, older Bruce Wayne with Damian? Something happens, you then want Batman and Superman to be similar ages, so it's actually then Dick Grayson that then stops being Nightwing, becomes Batman, and still has Damian as Robin. Maybe that's 2-3 films down the road, but that could be a potential story arc that they could look to go down if they wanted to go that route.
That would be a championship idea if we didn't have Robert Pattinson playing Batman, because I think it's difficult enough to have 2 Batmen existing in the same space, because
let alone same age, sort of similar ages.
Let alone
it's got to be different. They've got to be different.
But it would be quite a contrast though, because obviously Dick Grayson is. I mean, obviously, you know, he is a very much a different character. He's more.
Yeah, he's got.
You know, so it would be a stark contrast between the 2 Batman, which might help with establishing the Elseworlds side of things. But just a thought.
No, but the thing is, it's going to confuse the living shit out of a general public.
Yeah, because that's what I'm thinking. You'd be like, oh, somebody's talking about, oh, I love Batman, and da-da-da, and then they're like, yeah, because Bruce Wayne, and they're like, who are you talking about? I'm talking about Dick Grayson, and it's like, what? Who?
If it was up to me, I wouldn't even put Batman in the slate, to be honest. While Patterson's doing this thing, I would literally let the Patterson films run their course, and I'd hold off on Batman for 2 reasons. One, audiences are sick to death of seeing the origin story again. Not that you do the origin story again, but you know what I mean? That's the first joke that everyone comes up with. The other thing is you've also got Joker 2 as well. You want Batman to be its own thing when he comes, if that makes sense. And
why did they cut the Batman?
Why did they say it again?
Why did they decide to make the Batman Elseworld?
No, because it's not connected to anything at the time it was made.
Yeah, but why don't
I think the tone they're going to be going for is not the tone of the Batman, and I think you know, Matt Reeves had a vision for his Batman, and it was never going to be connected. I think to try and retcon that would have been a challenge.
They're doing a
Especially
Penguin
when-
series as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
exactly.
they
So
are.
you know
But
that's all going to be
in
its
the
own thing,
same-
and the Penguin's going to take. I think it takes off about a week after the Batman finishes in like time mode, and then the second movie is going to jump off straight after the Penguin season finishes. So that's going to be your interlude, and
That's right.
it'll connect the two. I'd much rather have that as its separate identity, much like we had the Nolan Batman's as its own thing. It doesn't need to be connected. The trouble is, again, because of the way the characters have been handled, if you didn't have Batman in that first slate as well, it becomes a very thin slate for DC in terms of its key characters because of the most recent films being Aquaman, Flash, having two Batman.
who I would've
Again, we're
swapped
gonna have like 4 Batman, you know, as part of this. You're gonna, because you're gonna have obviously you got Patterson's, you're gonna have Keaton and Affleck, and then you're gonna have the new one. So you can have like 4 Batman within like 2 years of each other, which is gonna be crazy. But
I mean,
mind you, they haven't given any
hopefully-
dates for the Brave and the Bold, though, have they?
they have
There's no dates for that. So,
But even when you look at it, we know for sure, just based on the release dates that we've been given, that we get Superman and Batman in the same year.
no. But I mean,
yeah, but that's Superman and
Yeah,
Batman.
because you
The
get
Batman.
the Batman.
Oh,
The
the
Batman
Batman.
2 is
Sorry,
for,
yes.
for October.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But I would,
Look, at the beginning of the movie,
swapped-
they're going to have a whole Elseworlds logo thing that's
pop
going to be
up,
on
yeah.
it. It's going to be a whole DC Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters. It's going to make it very, very clear where these kind of things sit. But anyway,
But yeah, I
any
would,
last thoughts on it?
Oh, I was just going to.
Yeah, go on, Josh.
I would have swapped out Batman. Like I said, I'm saying I would have got rid of Batman to be quite honest and bringing him much later. But I would have swapped him out for Green Arrow, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Similar similar kind of character, not as well known to the general masses if they didn't watch the damn show. And if we're going by seasons 1 and 2 of that show, it was damn good. The first 2 seasons before it went. Yeah, before it got bullshit. yeah. But
It definitely redeemed itself in the later seasons, though. Have to give-
I
have
ain't
to
going
give
back,
credit.
man.
No, it's done. It's done. But what I'm saying is, like, there's a couple of seasons where it wasn't good, but it did pick itself back up, to be fair. So, but yeah, it's a good shout, Green Arrow. That is a thing. I think it all depends on who they see their core members, because what you could have done, instead of having him, you could have had Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
You know, you could have had Hawkman or Hawkgirl. You know, you could have had something different, but they want to get those key figures out there. And
I think,
and again, the reason why they're not announcing Aquaman, Flash, and Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman again is one of those where they've not officially said Gal Gadot's not coming back, but but she seems to have been implied that it is, because Patty Jenkins wasn't going to be part of the next one. But Gal Gadot is very much like, oh, she's not in it, then I'm not in it. So I think she's actually stepped away more than actually DC saying, no, you're not in it. Because I don't think I've ever heard James Gunn out and say she's not. So we'll have to wait and see.
They might do it
say,
at
one way or another, they'll have their Holy Trinity, because obviously there's going to be the Superman movie, the Paradise Lost show, and then Brave and the Bold. So in one form or another, you know, age-wise, potentially, Wonder Woman could be really young, but you're at least starting to establish those three, you know, the Holy Trinity as DC in it. So.
Right, so then we've got another TV show, which is going to be Booster Gold. So in James Gunn's words, he is a loser from the future that comes back to the present day to be a superhero and have people love him. So basically, this is going to be exploring the superhero imposter syndrome. So somebody who desperately wants to be a superhero, doesn't necessarily have the powers or the inkling to be that hero, but uses his knowledge and opportunity to make himself appear to be one. Now, we've seen Booster Gold in Smallville back in the day, and more recently in Legends of Tomorrow, played by the guy who was Turk in Scrubs. I haven't seen his interpretation.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was Booster Gold in the Legends series, but I haven't watched Legends since probably about season 2. So, what are you guys familiar with Booster Gold? What do you want to see from this?
I think
he's a joke of a character. I can't stand him. I care nothing for this movie unless it's a joke.
It's a TV show
with a comedic. Well, again, my rules apply. As long as it's like a comedic actor in the role and it actually is funny, sure. But as a character, I can't stand it, man. It's like
I think this movie.
Ryan Reynolds.
Who's in Superman and Lois one, right?
This movie
Superman and Lois in New Adventures of Superman once. I swear to God.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that was the first time I saw him. He was in one live action interpretation.
Yeah.
He's definitely in Smallville.
Yeah.
He was in Smallville. I think he was in the Justice League cartoon as well, because I remember him in the cartoon.
I think the problem with Booster Gold is the exact same problem of Uncharted. The best person for the role has aged out.
Okay.
Right.
So who's that?
Nathan Fillion.
Oh, you would have had him as Booster Gold, right?
Oh, fuck, yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
Right.
he would have been a good choice.
Yeah. I mean, Sash is nail on head. You need to pick a comedic actor. What they need to do is they need to scour every.
Please don't be Kevin Hart.
No. Fuck no. No. Right? What they need to do is they need to do what wound up happening with Chris Pratt. You need someone who is a very good comedic actor, good comedic timing, and then just be like, look, you're going to play this role, so go hit the gym for a year. Right? Just so you look the part. Just so when you take off your shirt, you look alright.
Does Booster Gold need to be that kind of character, though?
No, because the thing is, he's a loser in his time.
Yeah.
Right? But he needs to still look the part in our time. So, I mean, because the thing is, just because you've got a great body, that doesn't mean you're a great superhero. But the appeal of when you take off your shirt still kind of needs to be there.
Okay.
So I'm just like...
But that's what I'm saying. Is Booster Gold someone who's built, or can he...
Yeah, he's always just like every time I've ever seen Booster Gold, he looks the part. He's in his suit.
But could that be part of the facade, right? Because he's not a hero, so could he be wearing something that makes like a bodysuit, which makes him appear to be that? But he's not.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
you could have someone like, I don't know, like Bill Hader or something, who's quite slim and skinny, but gives off the perception that he's something bigger and larger than life, because that's the image he's trying to sell. I don't know.
Or do you go that route? Obviously, Neil, you're saying there Nathan Fillion, you're too old. But what if he's that age because he's tried for years to be the hero in his time and has kind of failed. So therefore, okay, I'm going to come back. So he's an older guy compared to.
Yeah.
I think it works. It works.
Hero in his 20s. I don't know enough about the.
Unfortunately, he's already part of Peacemaker. But there we go.
Do you know who I'd cast as Booster Gold? Honestly, everyone will poo-poo this, but I think Chris Pratt would make a perfect Booster Gold.
No, I think he would have been a perfect Booster Gold.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, please. James Gunn's going to cast him as Superman, and we all know it.
No, do you know who I know we're not doing casting right now, but the only person...
Dave Bautista is going to be Lex Luthor. It's just going to be that.
Hey, look, do you know what? We need a built Lex Luthor, right? We need a muscle-bound Lex Luthor.
Yeah, we don't want some skinny ass.
Right? I don't need no skinny.
No.
I need a Lex Luthor that if he stood in front of Clark Kent and you didn't know Clark Kent was Superman, you think, wow, if he hits you, bro, you'll never see again.
Get the top G. Get the top G. Get Andrew Tate, bro.
Right?
What's your obsession with Andrew Tate, man? That's the third time you've brought him
I'm just joking,
know,
man.
right?
Seriously.
What's her name? You know Scarlett Johansson's husband?
He's a super villain.
Scarlett Johansson's husband. I forget his name.
Oh, from SNL. Yeah.
But from Saturday Night Live, right?
No, yeah. It's not Michael Che. What's his name?
He could be a Booster Gold.
Collins.
Yeah.
Colin. His name is Colin, sorry.
Yes.
Colin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think a Booster Gold of everything that we've come across, and this is a slate that includes Batman, I think Booster Gold is the show that that and Lanterns is what I'm most interested in.
Cool. Okay. Cool. So that is Booster Gold. So next up we have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So this is based off a newer or more recent comic book series. Not the kind of origins that we're familiar with in terms of Supergirl to us is she kind of got to Earth before Clark. So she's maybe more established. That's some versions of it. Some she does come after. And then she got trapped in a vortex and didn't quite make it, even though they left the same time. And Clark's are more established. But so this Supergirl she's raised on a chunk of Krypton after it's exploded, and watches everyone around her perish. So she's more of a jaded character. Now, have any of you guys read this comic book series?
No, this one I haven't read.
No, but I know where the idea of the piece of Krypton comes from. That's been used quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, survivors on a piece of Krypton. There's also City of Krypton. What's it called? Yeah, and so there are a bunch of stories like that. So I think it's just a mixture of that and Supergirl stuck on it, sort of a thing.
Okay, so what do you think? What do you want to see from Supergirl then? Because we don't want it to be just the same as Superman. We need someone.
No, it sounds like she's going to be more villainous.
I say this, knowing how foolish it sounds when the words leave my mouth. But give me a second to explain it. Supergirl needs to be a.
He's nearly about to get cancelled.
No, Supergirl needs to be a Supergirl of the 21st century. She needs to be a Supergirl of now, right? She needs to be like, you pick a early 20s girl. That's what your Supergirl needs to be, right?
Always on the phone all the time.
Yeah, well,
I'll say someone who, wants to be a feminist, but also wants men to pay for everything. I mean, what guy? That's the girls nowadays. So, is that the type of Supergirl you want?
You need a Supergirl who is far less like if Superman. The whole problem that people had with Man of Steel and Henry Cavill or Zack Snyder's version of Superman was that he wasn't hopeful. He wasn't there. Like, you look at Superman as a beacon of hope, right? Supergirl can't be that beacon of hope. She needs to be the beacon of, well, this is what happens when everything goes wrong.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
when
so
everything goes wrong, but the person doesn't become a villain, that's what you get with Supergirl.
Well, there was a lot of comics in which Supergirl was dating Lex Luthor. And Supergirl dating a lot of villains and being with them, sort of thing. Yeah. So her being on the wrong side was
the clone though.
Irritating.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite Supergirl is the one that was raised by Darkseid. But
around the time when Superman died, Supergirl there isn't Kara; it's her clone that's dating Lex. Yeah. And
so
she
Neil,
can
you said
actually shapeshift.
Right. So Neil, you said there's a Supergirl who was raised by Darkseid.
Yeah, there's a version of Supergirl she's raised by Darkseid.
So is that something we can see here then? I mean, I guess if we read the comics of Woman of Tomorrow, we'll understand more about what she's about. But I quite like the idea of that.
Yeah, because what has happened is that whenever time they bring Supergirl in, they're sort of trying to make her just the girl version of Superman.
Yeah,
which has never been the case in the comic books. I mean, some of them, yes, but a lot of them, she's in her own person who is equally, like, she could be stubborn, she could be just hanging out with the wrong people that you think is wrong people, but she sees something in them that nobody else sees them. She's been on the wrong side, she's been raised by the wrong side, been a villain herself. I mean, there's so many different sides that they never bother touching.
Supergirl needs to be a this is going to sound like a diss, but I don't mean it that way. I just can't think of a more accurate way to phrase it. It needs to be a better written version of She-Hulk.
Okay.
Yeah. And a bit more violent in a sense.
I actually had an idea about Supergirl like ages ago if you were doing a page one reboot of everything.
Yeah.
But it was more the traditional way of things, like if Marvel had done it. So you would have had like... The way I would have done it, like, let's say you had just Superman 1, Superman 2, Superman 3, etc., etc. I would have had Lex have, like, his cronies. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Like you had Otis, you had Miss Tretchmuncher, what's her name? That Tess Muncher. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But then I would have had, like, his henchman kind of thing. And I would have had a reoccurring henchwoman that was, like, a kick-ass blonde. In the first movie, she's just extra. Second movie, you see more action kind of thing, and she packs a wallop, and you're like, okay, what's up with that girl? Third movie, you discover, like, Lex discovered her, etc. It's that that slow onion peel kind of thing, and that's how I'd introduce her. That Lex got to her capsule first, took her in. Also, maybe that's how he learnt more about Krypton. If that makes sense. And have it for the big reveal kind of thing for cousin v cousin. You know what I mean? Because she has a loyalty to Lex. But I was going to do that over multiple films to see whether the penny dropped with certain fans, if that makes sense. And then,
but Sash, that works brilliantly because you have to remember originally Supergirl's already a teenager, but when she's sent,
That's right. Yeah.
She grew up with people who already are not very well liked on her own planet. They are egotistic, very smart, controlling, and so you have that figure personality. Exactly, elitist as well. So you have that personality coming into Earth. Would they not be attracted to a Lex Luthor type? Would they not be attracted to exactly? So,
but that's how I always kind of saw it. Except throughout the other movies, I would not put her and Clark in the same kind of, you know what I mean? Same kind of thing. So that deliberately, so that when they are, it's like a big moment. And but I disguise that as a moment that everybody kind of overlooks. You know what I mean? I wouldn't even cast like a famous person as her. I would cast her as an up-and-coming actress that probably had a bit part that's in other stuff on TV. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, she was that henchwoman in that film. Because literally the first film is, you don't think of her. You just think of her as background. You know what I mean? Whatever. When you come to film number 2, you're like, okay, she's got some decent fight scenes in. What's going on here? You know what I mean? And then give her a speaking part in the next film, because obviously you want to deal with other issues. My idea was from a page 1 rewrite kind of thing, is that you deal with other villains, because Superman has an array of villains. I would have done Brainiac first. I'm sorry, because I would have been like, Zod's been and gone. Okay, exactly like I said. 1 and 2 has happened. Throw it away. We don't need to revisit that shit. Do fucking Brainiac, Bizarro, Metallo, you know what I mean? And build these things up with Lex, like in the middle of this shit, you know, with his cronies and shit. And then eventually you get to, who the hell is this fucking bitch? She's got powers? What? What's her deal? You know? And I'd even do that where that was like a cliffhanger and people are like, what? And then have everyone speculate whether she is Supergirl, because people that know the lore would be like, is that what he's doing? And I'd just, because I like the whole thing of the build-up thing, that character that nobody sees coming until they see it, you know?
Yeah, they did something. They did something similar, I'd say, in the Supergirl TV series, where they had the Red Daughter, you know, like they did Superman. So, like, she was raised by, like, the Russians, I think it was, and basically Lex becomes, like, almost like a father figure to her, and he's coaching her and telling her what to do, because he wants, and telling her basically the other Supergirl is evil and trying to kill her. So, but I do like that dynamic in terms of, like, a main storyline where she is adopted by somebody who isn't nice, who doesn't play by the rules, and, you know, manipulates her into being what they need to be. So,
you know, but I would actually like to see that, The Red Sun. Nobody's done that. That'd be a great film, right? Superman growing up into old Soviet Union. Exactly.
There is an animated version of it.
There's an animated version of it.
Oh yeah, have I seen it? I can't remember if I have.
It's pretty good from what I remember. It's okay.
Do it Elseworlds.
I'll have a look.
So the last one, because we're coming in almost at 2 hours here. So the last one we've got is Swamp Thing. So this is a dark horror origin story. So outside of the DCU kind of main, but will feed into the main stories. So it's going to start a little bit on the outside and then come in. So we've seen Swamp Thing in Harley Quinn,
the TV show.
I think the most recently, which was quite funny.
Yeah, the TV show.
And the TV show, which I never saw. I think I only did one season, right? So
midway through a season.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
What I've heard, it's really good, really, really good. But the thing was, where they were filming it, there was some kind of tax thing where all of a sudden the show cost a shitload more than.
It was being shot in, I think. I think it was being shot either in Atlanta or like New Orleans or something like that, and they were meant to get tax rebate for the rest of their contract. They got tax rebates for that just year, and the next year they weren't going to get it. So the bosses canceled it before it was even aired, and then it turned out to be a brilliant show. And
it was good. I saw it.
But let's not forget Wes Craven. Les Craven did a Swamp Thing.
So what do we want from Swamp Thing? Does anybody know the character? Like the character?
I like the character.
Not my thing. Not my thing. Never has been my thing. Never
Like,
liked
as long as Swamp Thing, as long as Swamp Thing introduces John Constantine, I'm good.
So he was supposed to come back and do Constantine too, so that might still happen in Elseworlds, Keanu. So
I think that might be dead, to be honest. But
Elseworlds, never know.
Never know. What were you going to say anyway?
He has to speak to Gunn. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not really that big a Swamp Thing fan, but you know what? Marigold's interested, so, and he does good films, so we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've got nothing for Swamp Thing. I don't know the character that
Constantine 2 is still what I call as in production. I wonder if it disappears. But at least it's listed as one.
Yeah, but the thing with the Elseworlds thing, I mean, obviously, apart from Joker and Batman, because obviously they're more recent, I think if you're going to do Elseworlds stories, they've got to be like fresh, brand new Elseworlds stories.
Yeah.
You're going to suddenly do, this is now a sequel to a film that was 10, 15 years old. Like, but it's
true.
You know, it's like
I think
then you're going to confuse things. You're going to confuse things even more.
Stories, yeah, exactly. And it'd be interesting to see what kind of license they do give to those characters in terms of if they're doing Justice League and bringing all those characters in, obviously to a new DCU. What other characters will they release to Elseworlds? Do you know what I mean? Because at the moment it feels like that's just a bracket to be able to keep the Batman in and the Joker. So if they weren't in production or if they weren't a thing, I don't think that would necessarily exist. So is there anything new that you could see coming which would actually fit into Elseworlds?
Nothing I know.
I think Elseworlds
could we get another Michael Keaton Batman movie?
No, I think to be honest, I think the Elseworlds just gives them that freedom to be like, look, again, like we said, something like a Red Sun, or there's rumors of Batman Beyond or something, something that's a little bit more out there. If it's just going to be, oh well, this is a character that we like, but it's not going to fit into our main sort of DC universe. Let's just do a round.
That could be something.
Give me a Batman Beyond movie.
Batman Beyond series with Michael Keaton. Make it a series.
Give me a movie series, but give me a live action Batman Beyond. I'd probably say it's a movie because it's easier to get that funding and do it right. Whereas if you're doing it as a show, you're trying to get that amount of money multiple times. 10
times.
Right? So I say you make it as a movie, you get Michael Keaton as your Bruce Wayne, you get the kid from Cobra Kai, not the main character, not Miguel, Johnny's son.
Okay, yeah.
Right? You get Johnny's son as Terry McGinnis. Done.
Yeah. Not a bad shout.
You know what?
And that way you can do shit like you can do shit like you can have like, so I remember Commissioner Gordon is Batgirl, former Batgirl, right?
Yeah, Barbara Gordon.
Bring Alicia Silverstone back. Say, listen, we want you in the commissioner, innit?
Wow, that'd be interesting. Any other stories you can think of for Elseworlds? Anything else you'd like to see?
Yeah, man. Justice League Part 2, man. Bring it.
No, nothing more for Snyderverse. That is done.
Do you know what? I would say, it's going to sound weird, I'd say like Elseworld stories should be versions of characters that you're not going to see. So, like we said, there's Red Sun, Batman Beyond, anything that is like, this is just a different version. So, like, the Batman is a different version of Batman that we're not going to get with Brave and the Bold. So I'm like, just run it like that. Right? Then, because the problem with bringing something new to Elseworlds, in my opinion, is you waste the opportunity of presenting this new person into the main continuity.
Yeah.
So like,
especially if it hits and it hits big as well.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, we could have tied this into our main universe and we can't now because we've labeled it as Elseworlds.
Yeah, because having
the whole idea of Elseworlds in the comics
thing,
is, like you say, it's a different version of characters you already know. So I think if you stick to that, where it's different versions of characters you already know, then
but the other thing is they're meant to be creating a world like with Marvel. They've built all the characters are all interacting with each other. They're all part of this same thing. If you've got a Batman that's that old and has been around for so long, surely these people would know each other and know of them and know their stories and everything like that. How are they going to tally all that up?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You say you're starting a world.
If you have different versions for your Elseworld in your main continuity,
Well, what I'm saying is, in the Brave and the Bold, though, he's going to be an older Batman, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you don't get that with Marvel. It's all sort of started out from the get. You know what I mean? They've all sort of there hasn't been anyone that's really been around for ages that they all know about. If you know what I mean.
Well, that's the thing, because anyone who they've said, oh, this person's been around for ages, there was a cut-off point. So Ant-Man, he had this cut-off point where he disappeared. And even prior to his cut-off point, nobody outside of S.H.I.E.L.D. or outside of the government knew that Ant-Man existed. It wasn't until Scott Lang became Ant-Man that Ant-Man became an Avenger known to the world, or, it's things of that nature. So... You can
this is chapter 1, isn't it? That's what they called it, chapter 1.
Yeah, it's chapter 1.
Chapter 1, and then but some of these character storylines sounding like they're going to be way down the line.
But I
literally think Elseworlds is where the current DCU is going to sit, and I think that's why they've created it. So everything else will that'll be right. That was Elseworlds. Now we're at chapter 1, and I think that's why they've done it, because of these movies, and again because of the Batman and Joker. I think that's the only reason we've actually got this at the moment. I don't see much new content going in there unless it's animated. So, when they do their animated movies, which are lifted from comic book storylines, they'll sit in Elseworlds. So I think that is where they'll use it. I don't see us getting like a Batman, by Gaslamp, or samurai stuff. We're not going to have 4 or 5 different Batmans live action because that would be
you're right. So, if it wasn't for Joker and the Batman making
it wouldn't be
the money that it made,
just like Marvel, it wouldn't be everything's connected.
I can imagine, really and truly, if all of this went the way it's going right now, but Black Adam made 300 more million, it would be an Elseworld.
Yeah.
I think the thing for me is it's a shame that Aquaman 2 is coming out after Flash, because otherwise, literally, you could have Flash as a complete, right, cool, that's it, we've destroyed the universe kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you can start again. So I don't know how that's going to work with Aquaman 2 coming out.
It'll work the same way.
Because Gunn did say it was a reset in Flash. But how are you going to reset but then have Aquaman 2 come out?
Honestly, it'll work the same way that Aquaman, that Ant-Man and Wasp had it, right? The whole story will take place, and then the very end of it, you'll be like, oh shit, this happened before the Flash.
That's
it came out after Infinity War, didn't it? So
yeah, that's what I'm anticipating they do.
Yeah,
I think so. It makes sense. I mean, what could have been amazing is if they actually got the whole group together and you just see them fade off into the distance to give them an actual ending, but we're not going to get that. So unless because they own the likeness, maybe they'll throw some CGI versions in there and you'll just see them fade out of existence like Infinity War, just moving on. So, but we'll see. Right, so this was a hefty episode. Oh my God, we went off in some tangents. I'm going to have to put some chapter edits in this or something, because no one's going to sit here and listen to 2 hours of us talking about DC.
So part 1 and part 2, cut it up.
This is DCU chapter 1. I might have to split this into 4 parts. Release a little bit each week. Right, so thank you very much for joining, guys. That was a really good chat, some good debates there, some good ideas. Like I said, we're going to do some creative casting on some of these movies. So we'll cast a Superman movie. We'll cast a Batman Brave and the Bold movie. We'll cast a Supergirl movie, and we'll flesh out what our DCU will look like for the future. Anything you guys want to talk about or pimp before we end?
We're good.
I think we're good.
Good. All right.
And stream.
And stream. You like retro games? Check out and stream. Every week you miss your opportunity. Right. So. But to listeners, thank you very much. If you're still here, much love, much appreciation. If you just skip to the end, doesn't matter. It's all good. Thank you very much still. Please make sure you hit like and subscribe. We love doing this, and it is just for fun, but every little subscribe and view really helps us trying to move forward and let people hear our voices, and maybe James Gunn will listen to some of our ideas. And I really like that Lois and Jimmy one that for a series. I think that could be very cool, X-Files style. But yeah, that's it. So until next time,